Now, one of the themes you hear that I think about, that as I look at healthcare and you hear it in all these stories, is everything matters. You can't compartmentalize these various things when you start getting into the world, excuse me, of consumerism. Okay, next, the big shift. Legacy brand meets millennial moms. So next we're gonna have Kim Aasen and Jennifer Mugnaini. Did I nail it? Thumbs up. I'm a McEnery. Everybody puts an H in there, no H. And I'm gonna get the third one here too. They're from, well, bear with me. Jennifer's from Stonearch, and Kim is from Medela, not Medela. So my wife, who's a tutor for children with reading disabilities, would be very proud that I crushed those. Founded in 1961 in Zug, Switzerland by Ole Larsen. Of course, it could be Ollie for all I know. One of these times, I'm gonna get a Johnson up here. They continue to grow under the leadership of the Larsen family today, and they concentrate on two business units. Human milk, providing research-based breast milk feeding solutions, and healthcare, which they define as engineering and manufacturing medical vacuum technology solutions. Headquartered in Switzerland, 18 subsidiaries. They distribute to over 100 countries around the world. And of course, many of you know Stonearch here in Minneapolis, a great full-service agency focused on healthcare and medical marketing. And they work on everything with partners from prevention to intervention. Great organization. So in 2015, these two came together and partnered on a campaign that helps them connect with millennial moms and with their families in new, more relevant ways, probably leveraging a lot of the things we've been hearing about over the past few sessions. So without further ado, let's welcome Kim and Jennifer, two names I know how to say.
There you go. All right. Hey, everyone. I want to see a show of hands here. How many people have welcomed a new baby into their home? Come on, guys. A new baby. Boy, these lights are bright. A lot of people in the room. For those of you who decided to introduce breastfeeding into what was an already interesting experience of bringing that baby home, you're probably very familiar with Medela, the #1 brand of breast pumps globally. Here's what I will say. For a go-to brand that over 70% of the marketplace has and uses as their go-to breast pump, they really faced some serious challenges in the marketplace and had to do a quick shift. Sadly, and Kim, you can attest to this, the list was pretty long. First of all, the ACA announced, and we all love the ACA, right? A lot of announcements. They announced that now breast pumps are going to be covered under insurance. That means when I bring home my new bundle of joy, the breast pump that's sitting in my house, you know what? I didn't necessarily have to go to the shelf to buy that. It's a whole change in how Medela had to think about doing their business. At the time when we first started working together, the audience had a complete shift. We were now marketing to an entirely new generation of millennial moms that, as we've learned here today at the conference, acted totally differently than the generation before. And quite honestly, we find ourselves in a similar situation now because Gen Z, guess what? They're starting to have babies. Okay. And then Medela, after a considerable amount of research and investment in that, found out that after all that, after everything they've been doing and dedicated to the power of human milk for 40 years, guess what? Moms were not emotionally connected to the brand. Not good. And finally, millennial moms and families are so diverse, and Medela realized that, you know what, there was a lack of communication to a diverse audience. And all of this together was a real problem that Medela had to act fast on.
Ugh. So on behalf of Medela, ugh, that's a problem, right? And we quickly realized we needed to change. We didn't evolve with our audience, and that was a problem. But before you can change, we had to look at the category. We had to look at ourselves and our competitors. And this is what we saw. That's a sea of sameness and a sea of perfection that's lacking in any sense of diversity. Okay, so a bunch of you raised your hands when you said you were familiar with bringing home a new baby or knew someone that did. Okay, so when I brought my son home, I was covered in spit up. Most of the time, I hoped maybe I had taken a shower recently if I was gonna leave the house, and my hair looked more like this than anything that's seen in those pictures. That was my reality, and it was nowhere reflected in there. That was a problem. But before we could change, we really needed to understand our audience. And at the time, it was those millennials. So here's what was interesting for us. They really cared what each other thought. They really wanted to know what their peers were looking at and buying. 91% of those millennials would purchase based on what their friends and peers were saying. Okay, but here's the flip side. Over 40% didn't see themselves reflected anywhere in the advertisements, and that was completely lacking any sense of diversity. So this complete diverse generation was like, you don't know me and you're not talking to me. Problem. Jen also mentioned that we had to shift. So through the Affordable Care Act, which was great, moms could get their breast pump through insurance. Fantastic. But now mom, instead of going to retail, was talking to a DME, those durable medical equipment companies, who weren't used to talking to moms and knew very little about breast pumps at the time. So when mom picked up the phone to call to get her breast pump, it was really important that she asked for the breast pump by brand name.
So we knew that the solution had to come pretty quickly, and the thing that we said was that we had to put the audience first, in this case, the millennial mom.
Okay, Jen makes that sound really easy. And it wasn't quite that easy because we had to start with ourselves first. We were part of the problem, right? We were part of that sea of perfection, that sea of sameness. We weren't showing that messy, beautiful, challenging part of breastfeeding. We were just showing moms on a perfect cloud. So that was a big deal for us to take a look at. We also weren't going beyond the product. We had over 40 years of clinical research and education that we thought moms were accessing. And they said, no, you're not where we need us. And social listening. Moms were telling us and each other their pain points, and we weren't acting on them. And finally, that conversation was one way. We needed to bring those moms and their care circles into the conversation and have them be part of the solution.
Okay, so how do we go about doing all of this? It wasn't easy, and we had to do it very quickly, like I mentioned before. So we had to say, okay, through a thoughtful collaboration and content generation idea, we have to not only bring the brand voice of Medela more to life, but we have to do it in a way where we can't forget about Medela's bottom line. We had to move the needle for their business as well. Okay, so how did all this come to life? We launched the Through It All campaign. The problem with Medela's brand, no offense, Kim.
I know.
Okay. The problem was that the millennial mom and family, and especially millennial moms, they weren't seeing themselves within the brand. They weren't hearing their values. They weren't hearing their family experiences, and that had to change. And here's how we did that.
It's time.
Whatever works.
We're tag team wrestling.
The role of a dad is changing.
If I Google breastfeeding, it's not my face or one that looks remotely close to mine.
As a single mom, it's really important that other single moms know we can make this work for our families.
As an airborne soldier, I had to figure out a way to jump out of an airplane and figure out how to fit that into my pumping schedule.
I want to be an involved mom, but it's also important to me to be a successful career woman too.
and a success.
Well, there's always that level of guilt that I think moms feel. We need to remember that it's okay to make time for ourselves.
That's clearly quite a shift, as you can see. Now, I know there are a lot of marketers in the room, a ton of agency folks like myself. As you can imagine, we dissected the metrics of this campaign upside down, left and right, and every which way in between. And the metrics exceeded expectations from day one, which was outstanding and we were thrilled about. The thing we were most thrilled about, though, was that aside from all the engagement and everything else, is that in a very short amount of time, we were able to raise that emotional connection score between moms and Medela, and that was huge. Nearly 55% of moms, after Through It All launch, said, you know what, I do feel emotionally connected to Medela. 55% said, I'm so excited to what Medela has coming down the pipeline and what's next. And this number, nearly 70%, and as marketers, we all know this is the holy grail, right? We created brand loyalists, and that was huge. They said that they would recommend Medela moving forward. So the lesson really here is that brand storytelling is so much more powerful when it comes directly from the consumer, especially for the millennial audience. I guarantee you that my breastfeeding journey story, Kim, it's different from yours, and anybody else who has breastfed in this room, no two of our stories are alike. So when we combine our experiences like that, it only brings trust for the brand, and in this case, it worked. Okay, so how do we take all of that momentum and keep it moving forward? We decided to take the conversations from out of the home and move them into the studio, and we collected a panel of very diverse moms to gather in a one-day video shoot to share their stories on camera. These moms, at the beginning of the day, they didn't know each other. There were the usual pleasantries and all of that. By lunchtime, it was a group of friends having coffee, sharing stories and experiences. There were some laughs, there were some tears, and a lot of serious discussions were definitely talked about, but we were able to actually have a lot of fun with this one too. Take a look at this.
Date night, woo!
Impossible.
What is date night?
Every time we do get out,
We just talk about the kids.
and then I'm in a rush to come home.
Any basically miraculous period where Selah is sleeping is date night.
It's like, all right, she's sleeping, let's call it date night.
I have to force her on date nights.
They don't happen as often, but you really cherish them when you get them.
We got to make sure she pumps right before, and then 3 hours later, pump again, and that's it.
Date morning, date moment, date
Yeah,
day.
it's more of date moment.
You got to remember why you made that baby.
What did we do for kind of the last time we were out together without the kids?
I think that
Something.
We saw a movie?
We basically just date all the time now. I mean, it's really quite the opposite of what we thought.
We left around 7 at night. I only lasted till about 10 p.m.
My pumping sessions at night have often become a part of our date nights.
We sit down and talk, and I'm like, oh, I like this guy. You know, he's got good things to say.
We'll watch like Parks and Rec or something. We'll like ask each other deep questions. We'll try to mimic the sounds of the pump.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Oof.
Pumping makes date nights possible.
Oh, so very, very fun. We had a lot of fun doing that. Here's the lesson that we can take away from all this. Momentum is critical, everyone. If something is working, you need to continue that momentum moving forward. Here's the thing you don't want. You don't want stagnation. That's bad. Forget about that. But you do want iteration. If it's working, find another creative way to keep that momentum moving forward. And I'll say this, momentum is very critical, especially when you have a new product being launched 3 months down the road. And Kim, I know you agree with this.
That is correct. So while we were getting busy reconnecting with our moms and listening to them and celebrating their successes and really showing empathy when they had challenges, so were our engineers. They were holding focus groups and they were taking the lessons that they were hearing from us, and that was really important because Medela was getting ready to launch its first smart breast pump. Okay, so we had a lot of fun with that launch. Medela's expecting. We had a good time with it internally, but also you heard those parents just start talking about the pump sounds that their pump made. Moms were talking about this online. They were joking about it. So we're like, oh, we need to make a contest out of that. We need to give away a pump. Moms lost their minds, and that was some of the funniest videos you've ever seen. Because guess what? Our smart breast pump was really quiet too, so that worked out well. It was great. But just like with any launch, you can have a lot of fun, but you do have to show the business that you can have fun and deliver at the same time. And we were able to do that, again, because we reconnected with our audience. So I'm excited to say that we had fun and delivered, and we actually exceeded our e-commerce sales goals for Sonata within 2 months post-launch. So here's the lesson. Consumers are smart. They pay attention. So if you're gonna launch a breast pump with a tagline that says, designed with you and your baby in mind, you better understand them, you better know them, and celebrate with them and provide them a product that really does meet their needs. So once we reconnected with our audience, we weren't gonna let them go. We kept touching base, we kept doing market research, and this is what we learned. Moms trusted our brand, which was fantastic. And they also expected more from our brand as the market leader. They said, this is hard. Okay, great, you're finally showing the realities of breastfeeding, but it's hard and you're not here for the whole time. So we stepped back and we said, okay, what are moms' pain points? And what they were saying to each other was, how do you go back to work successfully and continue breastfeeding? What do you do when you have low supply? How do you store that breast milk so you can use it later? Well, we can help, but we just weren't in the right spot at the right time, and we didn't have all this great clinical knowledge and education packaged in the right way that mom was using it. So this is what we did. Okay, so it was dark, but I could see some of you kind of dancing in your seats a little bit. Like, you know, the music was pretty good. That was one of the other things that we actually heard. Moms were like, okay, great, but sometimes I'm on the train, and sometimes I'm at work, and sometimes I'm in a conference call, and I can't have volume, so I still need your information without the great music, and I don't need anyone talking to me. So if you look at that again, you can actually get all the great content without the jazzy music, but it's kind of fun to dance a little bit. So the last lesson is, I guess it's not the last, we have a couple more.
We have more.
This lesson is clinical content should stay human. It is part of who you are and what your product stands for, but it has to be accessible. So go beyond your product and make it easy to understand, put it in a place where moms are, and they'll thank you for it.
So, you know, as someone on the agency side, it's such a privilege to work with a company who has such dedication to their product and their audience. You know, Medela has over 40 years of experience and research and dedication to human milk across every single continuum, and that's very lucky. They also had a dedication to, as Kim mentioned, serving up that information at the right place and the right time for moms and their families so that it helps them along. And listen, as healthcare marketers in this room and everybody on the agency side, you know, right now on my desk, I have piles of white papers on my desk, and who has time to look through all of that, right? Medela could have chose to do that, to serve up that information like that for their audience, but they didn't. Drops was a great example, of course, but then they launched the Mom's Room. The Mom's Room is curated content that is delivered to mom directly in her inbox all along the right times in her pregnancy journey. It turns out, and through research we know, that the average mom makes their breast pump purchase decision 16 weeks into their pregnancy. So Medela wanted to make that purchase decision and how to get your insurance pump and all those things easier for her and help her along the way. And they had to reach her early and did so starting at 6 weeks. The Mom's Room launched successfully just about, has it been 6 months ago, I believe, and with great results. And here's a little bit more about the Mom's Room for you.
You're pregnant. It's exciting, and you're probably doing a lot of planning. Get a jump start on life after baby by thinking about breastfeeding now and sign up for the Mom's Room, your exclusive place for breastfeeding promotions, tips, gifts, and support, delivering the right information at the right time. The Mom's Room grows with you to give you confidence at all stages with access to 24/7 lactation support and back-to-work guidance that provides all the resources, tips, and tools you need to breastfeed how you want for as long as you want and cherish the bond with your baby.
Everything you need for a successful breastfeeding journey served up right to you at the right time, so that by the time you need to think about your breast pump purchase, you're so further along than if you didn't have the Mom's Room. The metrics supported the success of this launch, and as usual, as we agency types do, we measured it backwards and forwards. The single thing that we exceeded by 200% was that Medela said, you know what, in the first month, if we have just under about, let's say 5,000 signups for the Mom's Room, we'll consider this a success. Turns out that the first month we had over 10,000 signups. So reaching moms at the right place with the right type of information certainly engaged mom in the right way. The lesson here is that, here's the thing, you need to meet your audience where they are at. You cannot bank on the fact that the audience is going to come to you or that moms are going to seek you out. You need to be proactive in how you approach that to keep your brand voice in front of them and your products in front of them to move the needle for your business.
Okay, so now is the wrap up. I was a little ahead of schedule. So we want to leave you with a couple of thoughts. The first is stay human. You can be real, listen, you can show kind of the messy reality and still be a premium brand. And your consumers, as you heard today, they're expecting reality. It will work for you.
The next one is to own your position. Being true to your brand, always coming back to your mission and your vision and what your product and your company and your brand stands for, that never goes out of style. Own it every single day. We also recommend that you widen your lens. I guarantee you, and we have proof of this at Stonearch, that there are many interesting marketing initiatives going on outside of the usual breast pump category and all of Kim's competition, quite honestly. Widen your lens. Take a look at what's going on in the world and try to apply that to what you're trying to achieve as well with your marketing campaigns.
And finally, like many of you, Medela has a mission statement. And simply put, it's to help moms successfully breastfeed and provide breast milk for their babies as long as they choose. Every program that we do is actually bounced up against that mission statement. It has to be aligned. And if you can do that, I truly believe that you will have a really strong brand.
So as we wrap up here today, a few things to think about as marketers. We are always going to have some sort of shift happening in our worlds where your trusted and true brand is going to have to do some sort of pivot. It's important to understand that you have to be ready for it. And Medela certainly did that with the onset of the millennial mom generation becoming their #1 audience. I can tell you right now, Kim and Stonearch and the rest of the team, we've rolled up our sleeves together because now we have Gen Z to tackle, right? And people aren't going to stop having babies. So I hope that we're here in another 5, 6, 7 years presenting again on what we're doing for those generations to come. But if you stay true to your brand, understand your audience, those big shifts with the right partners and collaboration really can come to life in the right ways and move the dial for your business. Thanks, guys, for having us so much. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you. That was great. Well done. Thanks, guys. Kim and Jennifer. I think one of my big takeaways from that case study was the metrics, the focus on the metrics. One of the things that I learned coming from the agency side to the client side, but really in healthcare, was the metrics might be different. So for those of you in healthcare in here, a lot of these stories are to encourage the healthcare folks to embrace the ideas and forward thinking that our agency and creative partners can bring to us. But if you're at the agency, there's a quid pro quo, which is understand the business, understand the metrics that matter, understand that the metrics in healthcare might be different, understand what a HEDIS score is, understand what a STAR score is, understand what PBM stands for. So I think when you get to those levels of understanding, which we saw here, everybody wins. So we're going to call a bit of a timing audible. We're going to take just a 5-minute break to reset the stage, and then we're going to get going on our panel, and that'll give everybody a little time before we move out of this room. So 5 minutes, we're going to reset the stage, and then we'll just get going again with our panel. Thanks.